We'll spend this time talking about Under Armour, and I think you probably figured out fairly early that there are a lot of similarities between Under Armour and Lululemon. So this is a great case to jump into right after Lululemon. Both are designers, marketers of very high-end performance athletic gear. The both have very strong positions in North America. Both have designs on expanding their businesses in dramatic fashion outside of North America. The one, Under Armour, the majority of their business is men and boys. Lululemon, the majority of their business is women and girls. Under Armour is working, vigorously to expand their business with women and girls. Lululemon is working vigorously to expand their business with men and boys. One noticeable difference is their kind of go-to-market strategy. Lululemon sells primarily through, company-owned stores, some, independent, yoga studios and the like, but primarily through their own company-owned network of stores. Whereas Under Armour sells through, primarily through large retailers, Dick's, Sports Authority, etc. They are growing their business, their outlet business, and they're selling more through their website, but their primary channel remains, the large retailer. So that's one noticeable difference. Key elements of Under Armour's strategy. One is to broaden the company's product offerings to men, women, and kids for wear in a widening variety of sports and recreational activities. They also want to market the company's, ever-expanding lineup of performance products to additional consumer segments. Secure additional distribution of Under Armour products in the retail marketplace in North America. Not only through the large retailers, which they currently have, great penetration, but, they want to build their, catalog retail business. And also, as I mentioned before, they want to grow their outlet business and continue to sell through, more product through the company's website. They also use licensing agreements to distribute their Under Armour branded products, like eyewear, and certain golf products, certain, football products like mouth guards. They do slap their logo on a number of things that are put better. They do sell their logo to a number of people who license it for the sale of products, which the company deems consistent with the products they offer. Once again, eyewear is consistent with, high performance, athletic products. Mouth guards, certainly consistent with high performance athletic products, consistent with their, kind of football cleat, soccer cleat business and the like. They have a relationship with a Japanese licensee, Dome Corporation, who has the exclusive rights to distribute their products in Japan. I think they're looking to establish exclusive licensing relationships with other companies like Dome around the world. Other elements of their strategy: expand the sale of Under Armour products in foreign countries, become a global competitor in the world market for sports apparel and performance products. I mean, they are, giving Nike the business here in the United States and even in Canada, owing to, their continued rapid growth, kind of consistent rapid growth, quarter over quarter, year over year. But worldwide, they are, not a factor, relative to Nike in the sale of performance athletic gear. So they really need to gear up their business around the world, and try to mirror what they've done in the U.S. They need to grow in order to do that, they need to grow the global awareness of the Under Armour brand. It's a great brand here in the U.S. Once again, it doesn't compare to that at all around the world, so they need to do a lot to continue to grow that brand. Utilize endorsements and advertising to drive consumer demand and build awareness of Under Armour around the world. They have used athletes like Cam Newton, Steph Curry, Jordan Spieth, and they, to kind of drive consumer awareness of their brand, and that's worked exceptionally well. They need to continue to do that, and they need to sign some others. They need to sign some other, female athletes and the like to continue to get the name out there. They need to promote the sale and use of its products on the high school, collegiate, and professional levels. That's one area where they compete vigorously with Nike to get high school teams to wear their gear, which prominently displays their Under Armour logo. Same for colleges and professional teams. They compete vigorously with Nike for that business, and that has proven to be a great way to promote the brand, if you will. They need to increase floor space at the major retail accounts. They have been doing that. They need to continue to do that at places like Dick's and Under Armour. One way to do that is to design and fund what we call Under Armour concept shops, which is kind of a store within a store. You go into a Dick's and they have some small area dedicated for Under Armour products. Well, Under Armour will set up the flooring, the fixtures, the product displays. They'll have mannequins and lighting, all at their expense. But it's one way to differentiate their brand from the other folks selling in the Dick's store. For Dick's, the benefit is they get someone like an Under Armour to come in and invest a lot of money and to prominently display their products in Dick's stores. So it helps the store as well as helping the designer, in this case, Under Armour. Continue to use high-tech fabrics produced by third parties. As you know, the Under Armour's go-to-market strategy does not include the manufacture of fabrics, does not include the manufacture of products. They use, I think there's 6 third-party fabric manufacturers around the world that manufacture the products to specs designed by Under Armour. So they actually take the design and the fabric idea out to the third-party manufacturer, and the third-party manufacturers then produce those fabrics. They also use contract manufacturers around the world to manufacture their product. They don't manufacture any product themselves. And the idea there is that they think the value add in their business is in the design, is in the marketing, but not in the manufacturing. I mean, customers don't see the product being manufactured. So as long as you can find third-party manufacturers that can make the product up to your specifications, you want to make sure there's no slippage in quality, et cetera. So as long as you have people that can do that up to your specifications, it certainly makes sense to outsource the manufacturing to other parties who can do that probably better than someone like Under Armour can. They use 3 leased distribution facilities in North America to distribute their products kind of around the country. And their plan is to always maintain sufficient inventory to fill incoming orders very quickly, but then continue to manage that inventory so that you don't have excess inventory. So that's always a tricky thing. You want to have enough inventory to fill orders. You don't want your customers to have to wait for your product, but at the same time, you don't want to carry excess inventory because that costs money. Key success factors for Under Armour: product quality, performance features, brand reputation, and then to a lesser degree price. When you may notice once again when Nike, Adidas, or Under Armour, when they go to market, they are stressing performance features, probably 1, quality of product 2. They are pushing the brand extremely hard, but you rarely see any of the 3 companies compete on price. I mean, they may get to a point where, or even the retailers may get to a point where they're discounting products to move them, but you rarely see, Under Armour coming to market and advertising the price of a product. You rarely see Nike coming to market and advertising the price of a product. Same for Adidas. I mean, they have, I'd say, educated the market that they cater to, that there are things that are more important than price. And in this case, it's features, performance, quality, brand. They push those things very hard. They want to make sure the price is competitive so that they can outcompete, their primary competitors, but they're really not selling on price. 5 competitive forces. And once again, you'll see that this is very similar to Lululemon, because once again, they are very similar businesses. And excuse the header there, it says Lulu's. This is it should be Under Armour's 5 competitive forces. So they're very similar. The one difference is, once again, Under Armour sells through retailers and Lululemon through their company-owned stores. So the buyer power, I'd say, is a little stronger for Under Armour than it is for Lululemon. But barriers to entry, weak to moderate competitive force, buyer power, weak to moderate competitive force, supplier power, moderate competitive force, threat of substitutes, moderate competitive force, and then competitive rivalry, very strong, because you do have 3 well-heeled competitors that kind of fight to nail for every point of market share. Let me just fix this now. So excuse me 1 second while I fix this. Okay. The first competitive force, substitutes. Substitutes is a moderate competitive force. You initially might argue that it's a strong competitive force given the widespread availability of other types of athletic apparel products that are not made of high performance fabrics. So if you go into a Dick's, you'll see the kind of high-end, high-quality Under Armour products. You'll see the high-end, high-quality Nike products, and then you'll see some other products that look much like the Nike products, and look much like the Under Armour products, but are not of a similar quality and don't have the same performance features, but they do look alike. So that would argue that substitutes are a strong competitive force. There are many these things that are much cheaper, that knockoffs are much cheaper than the Under Armour and Nike and Adidas products. So that would argue that substitutes are a strong competitive force. However, it is only moderate because the substitute products mentioned they deliver less comfort and are viewed by many users as being of inferior quality. And once again, Under Armour and Nike, and to a lesser extent Adidas, they're selling on comfort, they're selling on performance, features, they're selling on quality of brand. They're not selling on price. So it's so substitutes, because of that, is only a moderate competitive force overall. New entrants is a weak to moderate competitive force. At the end of the day, it would just cost an insane amount of money to develop a product that is comparable in quality, comparable in performance, comparable in design to products being offered by Nike, Under Armour, Adidas. It would cost a lot of money to then develop a formidable brand around those products. It would cost a lot of money to aggressively market and promote those products. It would cost a lot of money to go out and sign celebrity endorsers to endorse the product. Nike signed Kevin Durant, the basketball player for the Warriors, to a 10-year, $300 million endorsement deal. So it would cost a lot of money for, Cliff's high performance products to come out the gate and to find, a celebrity endorser like Kevin Durant who had the image that you wanted to perpetuate your products. It would cost a lot of money for you to go out and do that, to push your products. And then it would cost a lot of money, time, and effort to get your product on the shelves of retailers. Dick's has great relationships with Under Armour, great relationships with Nike, great relationships with Adidas. There's no real incentive for them to come out and put, Cliff's, performance, high performance athletic products, to give those products prominent shelf space. There's just no reason to do it. The only reason they do it if you provided them with incredibly compelling discounts, but then if you provided them with incredibly compelling discounts, you wouldn't be able to make the money you need to make to go out and sign the celebrity endorsers, to continue to build the business, to continue to develop high performance innovative products. So it's really difficult. It would be really difficult for a third party to penetrate this business in a major way. Customers is a weak to moderate competitive force. And I want to start by saying it's important to understand that individual buyers of performance athletic apparel do not buy directly from Under Armour, Nike, or Adidas unless they are shopping in company-owned retail stores. Nike certainly has some of those. Adidas even has some. Maybe they're shopping at a company-owned outlet store on their showrooms. Otherwise, individuals are generally buying the product from Dick's or Sports Authority, etc. So given that they're not buying the products directly from the designer slash marketer, the individual shopper is in no position to bargain with the designer marketer, in this case Under Armour, Nike, and Adidas. So from the standpoint of the individual shopper, they have very little to no leverage in their relationship with Under Armour, Nike, and Adidas. I can decide tomorrow. I have Nike sneakers, and I've had a problem with a couple of them where they just kind of disintegrated after very little use. I can decide based on that not to buy Nike products anymore, but Nike will never feel the impact of me personally, kind of boycotting their products. So I have very little leverage with them myself. On the other hand, the large chain retailers have a lot of leverage in their relationship with Under Armour, Nike, and Adidas. The sports teams have, I'd say, moderate to strong leverage in their relationships with Under Armour, Nike, and Adidas. And really it's because those firms compete vigorously to get their logo on, let's say, the NFL jerseys. They compete vigorously to get their logo on the NFL jerseys. NBA, the same thing. They compete vigorously to get their logo on those jerseys. The retailers, the reason they have a lot of power in the relationships with Under Armour, Nike, and Adidas, because they have the freedom to decide which brands they want to stock in their stores and which apparel items within each branded product line they want to stock. It's also very easy and inexpensive for the retailer to switch out products of one marketer slash designer to another. So if they all of a sudden, if Dick's wanted to feature Nike products more prominently than Under Armour, it's very easy for them to do that. So given that they have that leverage, they can typically wrest, price concessions, marketing concessions, promotion concessions from the Under Armours, Nikes, and Adidases of the world. So the retailer does have a lot of leverage. It helps that the retailer that, Dick's, for example, has continued to consolidate the space for retail sporting goods. There are not many strong retailers anymore, but the ones that are strong, like the Dick's, have gotten stronger. So that helps them, and it helps them establish power in their relationships with Under Armour, Nike, and Adidas. The prestige sports teams, I'd say they once again, they've got moderate leverage in their relationship with the three, and it really varies. The NFL, which is one of the most powerful brands out there, will have strong leverage in their relationship with Nike, Under Armour, and Adidas. I mean, whenever they come to market and they're looking to sign up a partner, they're going to have those three in particular jumping through hoops to try to win that business. There's certain teams within the NFL that have a lot of leverage because they carry a lot more cachet than other teams. The Dallas Cowboys, the New England Patriots would have more leverage kind of in their relationships were they to negotiate deals away from the NFL. And in certain cases they can negotiate deals in their stadiums and the like, which are separate and aside from the NFL deals. And those better teams, the teams that have more cachet, will have more leverage. The lesser teams, or the teams with less cachet, will obviously have less leverage in their relationships with Under Armour, Nike, and Adidas. Suppliers is a moderate competitive force. There are two types of suppliers: the suppliers of performance-based fabrics, and once again, I think I mentioned there's 6 of those for Under Armour around the world, and then the contract manufacturers that produce the products. And I think the Under Armour has 26 primary manufacturers in 19 countries. 14 of those 26 manufacture about 2/3 of their products, so 14 of those do most of their manufacturing. 2/3 of the manufacturers are in Asia, 15% in the Middle East, 14% in Central and South America, 5% in Mexico. The key for Under Armour is they want to have some concentration in their fabric production. They want to have some concentration in their contract manufacturing because they don't want to have to deal with, too many people. They want to find, a select number of people that can do their business and do their business exceptionally well. So once again, with fabric suppliers, they want 6 that can do the business and do the business very well. They want the ability to mix and match. They want the ability to move business among the 6 to the extent that one of those 6, distinguishes itself by doing, a tremendously good job, or to the extent that one does a bad job. They want the ability to move that business around, to keep those 6 fabric suppliers honest. They want the same with their contract manufacturers. They want the ability to move business around to the extent that one does a tremendous job and one does a bad job. But, at the same time, they don't want too many such that, the process becomes, extremely difficult to manage. So given that they have 6 suppliers, given that they have 26 contract manufacturers, Under Armour's got a lot of leverage in those relationships. In many cases, they may be the only customer of those suppliers, and they have the ability to move their business around. So they've got a lot of leverage in their relationship with their suppliers. Rivalry is a very strong competitive force. At the end of the day, you only need 2 very aggressive, hungry rivals for it to be a very strong competitive force. We saw in the case of Sirius and XM Satellite, you had 2 satellite radio providers, and only 2, and they could have really developed a healthy market in which both firms profited, in a decent fashion, but instead they kind of competed to the death for both. I mean, they beat each other's brains out, literally. And at the end of the day, the companies were forced to merge in order to survive. I mean, both Sirius and XM were kind of on the way off a cliff, and their mere survival was a function of them being forced to merge by the U.S. Justice Department at the end of the day. So you only need two really, kind of crazy competitors to have a very strong rivalry. And in this case, we have three. We have UA, we have Nike, we have Adidas, and they compete vigorously with one another. Nike has, is the 800-pound gorilla. At the same time, they have faced intense competition around the world from Adidas, particularly following the merger of Adidas and Reebok, which strengthened their kind of business profile quite a bit. And then you've got the upstart in Under Armour, which was a gnat, for Nike, years ago, but Under Armour just continued to plug away, continue to grow at a rapid rate, continue to add products, continue to add endorsers, and now they're just a major pain for Nike, and they compete vigorously with Under Armour. Now, these three firms, it appears that they are rational and sane competitors, unlike Sirius and XM. And the evidence of that is they all three continue to generate attractive margins. So they're competing vigorously. They're not at the point where they are, cutting prices to the bone in order to gain market share. So they're competing vigorously, but they're also competing sanely in a manner that each firm can generate decent profits out of the business. SWAT, Under Armour strengths. They've got growing lineup of product offerings, a growing array of moisture wicking apparel items in many designs and styles for wear in nearly every type of climatic condition, which is once again how the business was started. I mean, in the manner in which they differentiated themselves, they designed products from the beginning that would do a better job than the products that were currently on the market in absorbing sweat. And they have continued to develop and push those products. They have diversified their product offering to include, apparel, footwear, accessories for men, women, and children at multiple price points in a variety of styles and fits, but all intended to regulate body temperature and enhance comfort. So if you go into a Dick's, you just see a much broader array of Under Armour products than you did, a year ago, than you did 5 years ago, than you did 10 years ago. So they continue to diversify their products and broaden their product lines. Their growing market share is evidence of their competitive strength. They have built a, strong distribution capability in multiple channels. Once again, they've got the retailers, they got the catalog retailers, their factory outlets, and then they're selling on the website. They are growing their brand, the perception of their brand around the world. They're introducing it around the world and growing the perception of it around the world through strong advertising and promotion. And they're, continuing to use, high-performing athletes and teams in an effective way in pushing their product. Weaknesses, they still, on a global scale, they have a weaker brand than Nike and Adidas, much weaker outside of North America. They have still have smaller product line breadth compared to Nike and Adidas. They just don't have the kind of the product line reach that those two firms have. Very limited distribution outside of North America. They are working, vigorously to expand that, but still, compared to Adidas and Nike, they have very limited distribution. And they have a smaller portfolio of celebrity endorsers than Nike. Nike's got that market pretty much locked up. And it's, the only time that Under Armour can, add someone is when their contract with Nike's up pretty much. opportunities. They still have significant opportunities to expand their product lineup and brand as they've done. Continue to do that. They've got an opportunity. They've got a big opportunity to expand outside the U.S. And it won't be easy. I mean, developing and building a brand is very difficult. They've done a great job here, and now the task is to do the same thing around the world, but that's not an easy thing to do, and it takes a lot of time, but they're in the process of doing that. Threats: intensifying competition from rival designers. That's always a threat. Once again, Adidas, Nike, they're coming at Under Armour every day, throwing everything in the kitchen sink at them. And then there's the buyer bargaining power that can be exercised by large chain retailers like Dick's and Sports Authority. And 75% of all sales are made through these large boxes like Dick's, and they're always given that they're going to have a lot of power in that relationship. So that's a continuing threat for Under Armour. In conclusion, the Under Armour's their overall situation is highly attractive. They've got we say they're an up and coming company, but they've been an up and coming company for quite some time. I'd say now they are a very established competitor. They've corrected many of their resource weaknesses, with one being, distribution capabilities outside of the U.S., brand image outside of the U.S. They are in the process of correcting that. And at the same time, they've got ample opportunities to sustain their rapid growth, given where they are kind of in their growth phase outside of the U.S. So they've got some running room outside the U.S. and will continue to. The outlook for them is very bright. Strategic group map, and you can map these guys on a number, these firms on a number of different kind of variables. I use a variety of selection and offerings, and then price, performance, brand image on the left. So you can see Nike is high with respect to kind of price, performance, brand image. They're high in terms of the variety of selections. They've certainly got the biggest circle, because they are the circles represent generally the revenues of the respective firms. Nike's clearly the 800-pound gorilla. Then you've got Adidas, Reebok, which is kind of the little brother of Nike, but a very formidable business in its own right. A little less, smaller variety of selections for Adidas. A little less in terms of price, performance, brand image than Nike, but formidable, very formidable nonetheless. Under Armour then comes in, very high on the price, performance, brand image spectrum, just a much narrower product line as compared to Nike and Adidas. And then you've got a couple of smaller firms, New Balance, Puma, much less selection, and command lesser prices than Under Armour and Nike and even Adidas. Competitive strength assessment. What are in comparing Under Armour, Nike, and Adidas? What are some of the factors that you can use to kind of compare these on objective measures? All right, I take that back. Subjective measures. Product line breadth is one important key success factor in this business. We weight that at 20% of the kind of overall weighting. Brand awareness and brand reputation, which is an incredibly important factor. We weight that at 20%. Caliber of celebrity endorsements, 15%. Distribution capabilities, 15%. You could argue that distribution's higher, but you'd have to take something else down. But you could argue that distribution's as high as maybe 20%. Product design, technical innovation, 10%. You could argue that that's greater. Geographic market coverage, 10%. Financial resources and strength, 10%. The once again, the 800-pound gorilla is Nike. We'll start with them. Product line breadth, they're a 10. They offer kind of everything under the moon. Brand awareness and brand reputation. The Just Do It campaign was known around the world, known and respected around the world. The swoosh is known and respected around the world. So it's one of the most powerful brands in the world. Even outside of sportswear, the caliber of celebrity endorsements, they've got so many teams, athletes, men, women locked up and have had them locked up for a long time. So they would rate as a 10 on that scale as well. Distribution capabilities, they're, paralleled at 9. Product design, technical innovation, 10. You could probably argue that they're a 9. I'm not sure they're a 10 on product design, but they're right there. I think Under Armour does actually a good job. Adidas does a good job on product design. Geographic market coverage, 9, and then financial resources and strength, the 10. They're just, once again, they're just a behemoth. So their total strength rating is 68. The weighted score is 9.75. So once again, you get the weighted score by multiplying the strength rating, 10 times the importance weight, 0.2. So you get a 2 for product line breadth, 2, for brand awareness, and so on. You go down go all the way down to the end, and the sum of the weights for Nike is 975, and their business, as evidenced by this chart, is much stronger than Adidas, which comes in at 8.9, and Under Armour, which comes in at 5.55. The one thing you point out is Under Armour. They, once again, they don't have the product line breadth. They're a 6 versus Nike's 10, but they're a 6 versus a 3. A few years ago. So they've got a lot of momentum there. Brand awareness in the States, they're probably a 9, but around the world, they're a 7 as compared to Nike's 10 and Adidas is 9. They don't have the celebrity endorsers of either of those firms at 5 versus 10 and 8, but they do have some momentum there. Their distribution capabilities strong here in the U.S., not strong around the world. So they're a 4 versus 9 for Nike and 10 for Adidas. Product design, 8 versus 10 at Nike, 9 at Adidas. I think they're closer to those two firms. Actually, I may even take that up a notch. They don't. It just, at the end of the day, they don't have the geographic market coverage that Nike and Adidas has. 4 versus 9 and 10, and they don't have the resources that Nike and Adidas have. So their strength rating's 38. The weighted score is 5.55, which is well below where Nike is and well below Adidas. But one thing to note is they've come up. They're 5.55 now. A few years ago they may have been 4 or even less. So they've got a lot of momentum. They've made a lot of progress, and it's being recognized certainly by Nike and being recognized by Adidas. So they recognize the strength of the Under Armour brand. Select recommendations. You can have a number of different recommendations, and they may actually be different than the ones we have here, but they've got a great playbook. They being Under Armour, they're doing a lot of things right, and that's why they continue to grow at a very healthy clip, kind of quarter over quarter, year over year. So I think the thing for them is they just have to continue to do the things that they're doing well, continue to broaden their product offering, continue to expand their footwear offerings. They've got an opportunity to focus more on premium running shoes, which is an area where Nike is relatively weak. Continue to expand in foreign countries, continue to focus on their same distribution channels, continue to sign, appealing celebrities, continue to sponsor a growing number of sporting events, continue to promote, their products through high performance athletes, continue with their, effective advertising campaigns, continue to use innovative fabrics, and continue to use contract manufacturers in a manner that they've done, which has been very effective. So that's Amazon. It's a fascinating company. It's a company that I love. It's a company that does a tremendous job in serving customers. It does a tremendous job with just about everything but making money. And once again, for most companies, the market punishes you for not making money, but they've been incredibly lenient with Amazon, and it's paid off for them because the stock just continues to go up. So everyone's benefited. At some point, Amazon's going to have to put some of their emphasis on the near term and less emphasis on the long term. They're not going to get the benefit of the doubt forever. No one does. Lululemon, it's another interesting company. You guys made some great posts on Lululemon. Key elements of their strategies to continue to grow their store base in North America, open up additional stores outside North America, particularly in Australia, New Zealand, Asia, Europe, increase awareness of the brand via their showrooms, and continue to incorporate next generation fabrics and technologies into their products, and have customers continue to associate their brand with high-tech next generation fabrics. That's incredibly important given the prices that they charge for their products. So people will only continue to pay those prices if they think they're getting something that's well worth the price of admission. So they have to continue to push their image as this technology solution for performance-based fabrics. They need to broaden their one of the strategies is to continue to broaden their product line. They've got great emphasis on men's active wear, golf wear, tennis wear. So they need to continue to innovate on that front, and they need to design products that cater to women of all sizes. I mean, and we all know that they got into big trouble based on some silly comments made by their founder and former CEO. You can't be successful, in my mind, by shutting yourself off to a decent part of the population for no apparent reason. It's just kind of silly. So continue key elements of strategy, provide a distinctive in-store shopping experience. So much like Amazon needs to, in order to be successful, they have to drive a distinctive online experience. Lululemon has to drive a unique experience in the stores, and to date they've been able to do that in an incredible way. Once again, they use your showrooms to introduce the brand, to kind of push the product, to develop this aura, and to continue to feed these customers who are almost like members of a retail cult, if you will. I mean, they're really enthusiastic about the products. Continue to market to the studios, yoga studios, health club, and fitness centers. In many respects, the people that work in those forums are kind of extensions of the sales force at Lululemon, because they're out talking up the products as well. They use contract manufacturers to produce their products, so they don't take on the risk of manufacturing product, and they don't have the expense of building manufacturing facilities. They find good contract manufacturers and rely heavily on those. Much like Starbucks, which we talked about before, doesn't farm its own beans. They partner with a number of different farmers around the world. Much like Apple doesn't manufacture its iPhone, they use contract manufacturers to do those. You just have to find people that you trust and can rely upon, but it saves a lot of capital as well as time and expertise when you don't have to worry about the manufacturing side. You can focus on the things that add the most value, which are marketing, engineering, design, and things of that nature. And the same is the case for Lululemon. They need to maintain, limited store inventories. They are very focused on making sure their stores are adequately stocked but not overstocked, because they want to make sure that they're selling product, the vast majority of their product, as a full price. You won't see many of their things sold at discounted prices. So they do a good job of managing their inventory, much like Apple does. And then they offer special colors and seasonal items so that when customers do go into the store, they feel like they're getting something new every time because they'll have something special at any given point in time during the course of a year. The 5 competitive forces, which we'll visit: barriers to entry, weak to moderate; buyer power, weak to moderate; threat of substitutes, moderate to strong; competitive rivalry, moderate to strong; supplier power, moderate. So the forces aren't strong, which suggests that they should be able to make decent profits, assuming they don't get in their own way. I mean, they had a lot of problems, but they were self-imposed. The fabric was ill-conceived, and somehow it kind of made its way all the way through the process, through R&D, through manufacturing, through everything, and onto customers' bodies without anyone internally figuring out that they had a problem. So the problems were all brought on themselves, but the factors, the competitive factors for them, are actually quite favorable in terms of their ability to generate profits going forward. In terms of substitutes, once again, it's a moderate to strong competitive force. Factors that are acting to intensify the competitive pressure with respect to substitutes: the widespread availability of yoga and fitness apparel products that are not made of performance products, and fabrics that are a lot cheaper, many types, and that aren't sold by Lululemon. That's the second point. They're a lot cheaper and made by cheaper fabrics. Factors that act to weaken the competitive pressure: the cheaper products typically deliver less comfort and are viewed by users as being of inferior quality. So for the customers of Lululemon, once you've used the product, oftentimes you will continue to use it. And for customers who don't use it, they decide, similarly, they don't need it. They don't need to pay the price for those products. But once they are able to convert a customer, in general, assuming they don't trip themselves up, they should be able to keep the customer. The force with respect to new entrants is weak to moderate. The first factor is the fast rate of growth. It helps to intensify the threat of entry, because naturally, when the sector is growing fast, that would naturally encourage others to enter. The expansion of existing industry members, of their market reach, they're broadening their product offerings to meet the growing demand. So you have folks like Nike and Under Armour continuing to expand their product lines because the demand is growing so fast. So those things are acting to intensify the threat of entry. The things that are kind of countering that is you've got a small pool of designers and marketers that are actually looking to manufacture, yoga and fitness-based apparel. Is still a pretty small niche in the overall athletic apparel market. So even though it's growing at a nice clip, it's still pretty small and not likely to attract too many new people. And then there are high barriers. You need a broad retail distribution network. So if I wanted to manufacture this product tomorrow, I'd have a lot of problem getting my product on shelves. I mean, that takes forever, and it's not easy to do. And unless you have just tremendous relationships with just about every retailer across the country, you'd have a hard time entering the business. And it would be, very expensive to go against the established players in Lululemon, Nike, Under Armour, et al. The customers is a weak to moderate competitive force. The buyers of the performance-based yoga and fitness include the retailers that stock the products, the individuals who shop at the retail stores, and then which would be us, and then the small number of fitness centers and yoga studios that stock the limited amounts. The individual buyers don't really have any power because, once again, if I decided tomorrow I'm never buying another Lululemon product, even though I don't buy it now, but if I did decide that, they wouldn't even know. I mean, so I would never, make it onto their radar screen. So I just have no leverage. It's similarly with the fitness centers and yoga studios. They have very little power because their orders are so small. If they ever decide, we're not buying anymore, it's probably not going to, hit the radar screen of anyone that really matters, because it's just too small. The large chains definitely have bargaining power. They have, because they can decide, which brands to carry, which, products within those brands to carry, which brands to feature, where to put the product, et cetera. So they can really determine your success. They can decide where they're going to price your product, et cetera. So they have a lot of leverage. But the little folks, the individuals, and the small yoga shops don't. And for Lululemon, it doesn't really matter that the big guys have that leverage because they sell their product through their website and through their own stores. So, yeah, Dick's, and all the big guys have leverage, but it doesn't matter for Lululemon. Okay. Suppliers is a moderate force. There are two types of suppliers: the makers of the fabrics, and then the contract manufacturers that actually produce the products. The factors that are acting to intensify the bargaining power of suppliers or to give them greater bargaining power. They have proprietary fabrics and with superior performance features. So once again, the key for Lululemon and its competitors in selling these, high-end kind of technology-laden fabrics is to convince the customer that they've got kind of the latest and greatest technology and the latest and greatest products. So they, in order to continue to do that, they have to align themselves with fabric suppliers that have the latest and greatest fabrics and continue to innovate and continue to bring new fabrics to the market, for which they have to pay fair prices. So those fabric suppliers who can continue to innovate and bring new things to the market will have some leverage. And then the designers, they're not necessarily a threat to integrate backwards, the designers and marketers of the fabrics, just because of the cost of doing so, and it's really not their business. We don't know. I mean, we couldn't name any of the people that manufacture the fabrics. So if it was, Cliff's, high-end, technologically advanced fabrics, if I wanted to go into the retail business tomorrow, I'd have a hard time selling that because nobody knows who I am. So I don't think there's a great threat that they're going to vertically integrate into retail. So that's not a big competitive factor. The rivalry is a moderate to strong competitive force. The rivals are very large, capable, meaningful competitors. We're talking Nike, Adidas, Under Armour, Gap, Nordstrom. These are, meaningful, very good retailers who, are committed to, the idea of success. So once they enter the market, they're going to come, kind of full guns blazing. So they're meaningful competitors. The competitive pressures are being intensified, given the efforts by these competitors to expand their product lines. Once again, the yoga and athletic apparel, high performance athletic apparel, the sector has been growing at a healthy clip. And so Nike, and particularly Nike and Under Armour, and to a lesser extent some of the other folks, are continuing to broaden their product lines every day to meet the growing demand from the customers. And so that's intensifying the level of competition in the business. The rival is weakening as the growing demand is soaking up all those additional product offerings. So even though they're broadening their lines, people can continue to buy it. So all of the major competitors are still making decent money. Lulu's strengths, the broad lineup of stylish, premium priced yoga and fitness apparel that offers performance, fit, and comfort. They have a contingent of fitness conscious, women in general. They have broadened their purview to include men, but it's still, their customers are still primarily women who view their products as a must-have. Much like people that use iPhones view those as must-haves. So they've done a good job of building brand equity with their core customers. They have a core competence in designing stylish, appealing products, and they've got a growing chain of retail outlets in Canada and the U.S. They, as we talked about earlier, they have proven merchandising skills and store operation capabilities. They're really good at merchandising, and they're good at recruiting, local yoga and fitness instructors to be ambassadors for their products or to be extensions of their sales force. They've got good marketing and brand building capabilities, and they are really growing their e-commerce business. So they're growing their website. I mean, they really had one stumble, a major stumble, but other than that, they have done a really tremendous job at building this business. Weaknesses: entrenched founder who did some idiotic things. It's no longer around. But because of the stumble that they did have, they lost the faith of some of their key stakeholders, some of their key shareholders. Supply chain management and quality control was questioned as a result of that. The brain cramp that they had and the issues that they had. The reliance on showroom stores to enter new markets. It can be a challenge because they go and they build the showrooms and they build up kind of the enthusiasm and the interest in the product before they go and build the stores. So it's a slower path to market. It takes them longer to get their product to market than some others. And then their product line breadth is growing. The product lines are growing, but they're still, much smaller than Under Armour and Nike and some of the others. Opportunities continue to branch out into new areas. Growing sales, continue to grow sales on the website, revamping the design function to appeal to a larger swath of customers, both men and women. They have begun offering, full refunds to customers for unsatisfactory products, which they weren't doing before. And then adding fitness space in the stores for yoga classes and the like, all things that will continue to build kind of brand equity with their core customers. Threats, I'd say, damage control and efforts to improve both design and function. They have to make sure they don't have another major incident like the one they've had now. They're starting to rebuild kind of their image in the eyes of shareholders and customers alike. They have to make sure they don't have another major incident. Newer entrants continue to expand. Gap, VF with their Lucy brand, they continue to expand domestically and globally, and those are big major players. So they're going to have to keep their eyes on that, and particularly have to fend those brands off of some of their customers, keep them away from some of their customers. The large firms will continue to roll out new products. That's definitely a threat to Lululemon. Once again, Nike and Under Armour in particular are very focused on the, performance fabrics, and so they're going to keep coming and come strong. So Lululemon has to work hard to fend them off. The large department store chains, they're faced with declining traffic in their stores, and they're trying to find other ways to make money, and one way is private label. So you could easily see more of them private labeling, apparel, fitness apparel, and things of that nature. So they have to be wary of that. Strategic group map. If you on the axis on the left, we have the distribution channels utilized. We've got independent at the top. We've got company owned in the middle, and then the bottom is companies that sell through both independent and company owned stores. And then at the bottom, we've got the breadth of product offerings from narrow on the left to wide on the right. So we see Nike, Adidas, Reebok, they have wide product offerings. They're all very large in nature. That's why their circle is so large. And they sell through a combination of independent and company-owned stores. Under Armour is narrower than those three companies. They also sell through a combination of independent and company-owned stores. You see Lulu sells through their own stores, and they've got relatively speaking, a fairly narrow product offering. And then you've got some other less known companies that kind of have a broader product offering than Lulu, but less so than Nike, Under Armour, and Adidas, and they sell through independent retailers. So if you're Lulu, you look at this and you try to answer the question, that's where we are now. Where do we want to be? Do we want to clearly, I think they've decided they want to continue to distribute through their own stores. And then the question is, how wide do we want our product offering to be? I think they'll clearly conclude that they want it to be wider than it is today, but never as wide as some of the big names.